revolution. One of peace, one of love, and one that brings God back to the center of this land. I don't believe most of what they tell me. I'll never take a knee, and I will fight to the last breath in my body.
Let's go.
Is he ready? Now, I don't want them to yell at me for talking too young, but I gotta make sure that the man of the moment is waiting in the wings. There's not enough activity to my side, so let's talk about Russell Brand. Russell Brand is just classic because he came from their world. They don't like it when you come from their world. They held you up, they adored you, they made you a hero. They gave you prizes, they wrote glowing articles. Now they have to find a way to say, well, we didn't mean any of that. None of that was true. Just like me, I used to be a great journalist when I was on 60 Minutes. Apparently now I've lost my mind. You know, great doctors. There's some great doctors. People that were elevated at UC Berkeley and above, right? And now they're no longer great doctors because they believe in natural immunity and they don't want to be experimented on or lie to their patients. What happened to that? Uh-oh. Russell, if I let you baptize me, will you strip down to your underwear? Will you baptize me in your underwear? He doesn't think I'm serious. I was 8 the first time I was baptized. It was humiliating then. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome to the stage a great man who is great and doesn't care what they say.
It's so lovely to be part of a double act that would have seemed somewhat unlikely just a short decade ago with my esteemed colleague and fellow clinical psychologist, Dr. Jordan Peterson, everyone. Doctor, before we begin this presentation and Rescue the Republic, brilliantly organised by the great Brett Weinstein, a round of applause for Brett. I'd like to allude to the fact that it can't have been easy for him to get licensing and permit for this event, when surely at some point he'd have had to have explained what its purpose was, its proximity and its location, other than holding the event on January the 6th. I don't know what he could have done to have made it more administratively challenging for himself. So once again, Brett Weinstein, thanks for holding this event. Journey. I don't mean literally, we arrived separately, but by God we'll be leaving together, won't we, Doctor? To arrive at this stage. I'm an Englishman, I'm not from your great country, I admire it and you very deeply. I'm not traditionally what you might regard as a Republican or a Trump supporter. I've arrived on this stage via Hollywood, via liberalism, via all sorts of images of freedom, in the form of decadence and Epicureanism, the mindless pursuit of pleasure as a god. But I stand before you today, thankfully with a professional psychologist, because I could go crazy at any moment, baby. Because I admire your spirit of freedom and your liberty. And it seems to me that once the MAGA movement is joined by Robert F. Kennedy, We saw how they protect the vulnerable by imprisoning the majority, by medicating everybody, by obfuscating facts, by concealing truth and controlling freedom. I, like many of the organisers of this event, believe that this is a critical moment for us. Not just the ordinary rank and file supporters of the Trump and MAGA movement, although to you, of course, I am open-hearted and full of deep and Christian love. But also to people that would never consider voting for Donald Trump. It is to them that I reach out in earnest and say, if you care about democracy, if you care about freedom, if you care about ending war, if you care about your children's health, ultimately if you care about freedom, this is the time for you to do something decisive and different. I pray for a free and fair election in November. I pray that great American heroes like Edward Snowden will be revered and heard. That international martyrs like Julian Assange will be accredited. That the defense industry, the big food industry, the big agricultural industry that prohibits, curtails and oppresses ordinary farmers will face at last the serious opposition that it requires. And if it takes me, an Englishman, and the great Dr. Jordan Peterson, who is, whatever his great credits, he's still Canadian.
So far.
They're working on that, aren't they? We're here to talk of your freedom, our freedom, and collective freedom. So with that, I will now ask you, Dr. Jordan Peterson, why did you, because now, well, this is a segue, I'm moving to an interview now, but where I've spoken for a long while. Any of you that know Jordan Peterson, well, you've never seen Jordan Peterson not talk for that long, have you?
Well, you know, it's not entirely obvious to me what the solution to the situation is, you know. It's pretty plain.
I know you've got a microphone, and I've seen you defend yourself against English broadcasters extremely well. Dr. Peterson, tell us why it's important for non-Americans like myself and you to participate in this event, and what is, given that this is a rally, that means it's an offering of optimism and hope for the people in attendance. How do you believe that we should start off our conversation, sir?
Well, whatever is happening here is emblematic of something that's happening all over the Western world, right? I mean, it's exemplified by the political process in the U.S., especially as it leads up to the election, but all the things we'll be discussing today are both broader and deeper issues than the mere political. And so they are of international concern, and of course, what happens in your country has been of central international concern for a long time, but that's transformed, as I said, into something that's deeper and even more significant. I made allusion this morning to the fact that we're trying to get our story straight. We're trying to understand what is the foundation on which we all stand that allows us to maintain the freedoms that ennoble us and give us an unlimited horizon of opportunity. What are they in the United States? What are they in the Western world in general? How are they related to, let's say, the Judeo-Christian enterprise as a whole? And what is it that should bring us together as avatars of the freedom-loving democracies across the world? So what's happening here is of immense international significance, as you know from watching how people around the world are, what would you say, looking to the United States in particularly to defend free speech, because if it's ever defeated here, it's gone everywhere, and that would be a terrible thing. And make no mistake, it's under true assault. In my country, there's a bill that's in second reading, which has pushed it quite a ways along the legislative route, Bill C-63, which literally allows people to be reported to a provincial magistrate under the possibility of 1 year's imprisonment in their own house with an ankle bracelet, with all their communication intercepted in consequence of anyone's complaint that they're afraid that a hate speech event might occur in the next year. Yes, that's Bill C-63, you know, and I've read that bill 3 times, because every time I read it and then think about it, I can't believe that I could have possibly understood it properly. And yet here we are, and there's very similar things going on in the UK. There was a terrible bill that was recently defeated in Ireland, for example, which would have put severe restrictions on free speech. And there are people in the UK who are being persecuted, and seriously persecuted, for expressing their opinions, offensive though they may be, publicly, in a manner that is absolutely necessary if you're going to support free speech. And we know that, well, the free speech that offends no one requires no defense, and that's partly because it has no content. If I only ever say something that everyone agrees with and produces no emotional response whatsoever, there's no point in even speaking. Because you don't have to concentrate on what's obvious if you're going to speak. You have to concentrate on what's contentious and disruptive. And there isn't anywhere on earth, and this certainly includes my home country, where the protections for that vital right are more thoroughly enshrined and deeply entrenched than they are in the United States. And seriously, thank God for that. It's so vital, it's so important. So, you know, and so to maintain it, and don't be taking it for granted, because any time, as Robert Kennedy pointed out earlier. So